Module 7 webinar. So first question, what are factors associated with why students of color are disproportionately identified for special education?
One reason can be for the ELL students. They are misrepresented or because their language, and when doing the assessments for special ed or observations or recommendations by gen ed teachers and stuff, they might misdiagnose it as a learning disability instead of a language barrier that the kids are having. And also, if they don't have an ELL program in their school, this might be the best option for them.
I also found in the Word article, there's also, it mentioned that there were differing views of what a disability was, as well as there's culturally specific behaviors. So along with what you were saying, Jess, with the language barrier, there's also culturally acceptable behaviors in some cultures that may not be appropriate in the classroom that we see. So therefore, like, a teacher might see that as a problem, where in reality, that's what the child was taught to behave and how to behave, and so they think what they're doing is correct.
Building on what you were saying, I think that based on the readings, there's a connection between administrators and teachers seeing behavioral issues as emotional possibly, or a learning disability, when it's truly just a disengagement because of poor instruction or instruction that isn't culturally inclusive or culturally relevant for students of color. So there's kind of this disconnect where they're not participating in the learning or showing data that shows growth or learning happening, so then they're labeled as SPED or 504.
The article also said in the attitude the teachers towards the students and the expectations of testing also contribute to that disproportionality as well.
Agreed. Good. Question 2. What federal policies have shaped the educational experiences of students with disabilities and abilities? And this is in terms of the justice and the law.
That is interesting that the first earliest we'll see with Brown versus the Board of Education, it is said segregation, and we incorporated the schools of different races, and parents of disabled children, they started kind of started asking when are our children going to be, truly incorporated into schools that are being left out or included separate schools or separate classrooms. So I thought see that connection between social integration and ability integration as well.
Yeah, I thought that. Go ahead. You're good.
Oh, okay. And then in 1970, IDEA was developed out of the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act. So in 1990, IDEA came about.
Yeah, and IDEA is what we follow primarily now. There have been sections that have been added to it, such as the 504 plan, as well as No Child Left Behind. And really that just focuses on giving children the equal opportunity, as well as focusing on getting them to be not only included, but be proficient within their educational setting. Good. What are the different special ed categories that educators should be aware of, and what are the differences between them?
I know two main ways to break these down. There are 10 different ones, but two kind of broad categories are like the mental disabilities and the physical disabilities that kids can be placed under. And some of them can overlap into the 504. But some of the major ones for to be identified for an IEP is like the multiple disabilities, the autism, traumatic brain injury, and the emotional and the learning disabilities. Those are some of the bigger ones I know that we see at my work. And it's more like sometimes it's the behavioral or the students who need more of the executive functioning that kind of go towards the 504 end of it.
Yeah, we see most of our kids are primarily diagnosed within that learning disabilities category. A lot of them have secondary needs such as that are more like you were saying the physical categories such as occupational therapy, hearing impairments, visual impairments, speech impairments, that kind of go along with those that can be seen in 504s, but also there's communication and physical disabilities. And it's important for teachers to realize that there are these two categories because something as simple as a list can be something that can really impair or impact a student's ability to function in the classroom. So they need to be aware of those on top of the academic aspect as well. Question 4. What role do educators play in how students are identified for special education and the types of services they may or may not receive?
I think teachers have a lot of power in this regard where they kind of are the ones that are doing a lot of the recommendation because they really see, what a child can and cannot do every day in the classroom setting, or as maybe like the SPED or the SPED coordinator of school may not see that, especially with new students or students who have been looked over the years. Which is a good thing, but so as we've seen in the reading, is a higher risk for students if the teacher has implicit bias and is misidentifying them or recommending them for students they may not need.
I definitely agree with you, Lizzie. The teachers are kind of like our front line. They're the ones, with the boots on the ground that are really in there observing these kids and at different times throughout the day in different contexts. And sometimes it's kind of like a two-edged sword, if they're not quite sure what to do with these kids because they're frustrated with them or they don't have the proper training, then they can really kind of push it to where they are in special ed when maybe the kid doesn't need to be. So I definitely think that I agree with you, Lizzie, that the teachers do kind of have a lot of pull on the services that kids will or will not get.
I think that...
can I ask...
Yeah.
I just have a question for the special ed people, so Hillary, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, too, I think it's important, when kids are going through the testing process, there is that teacher input that the school psychologists ask for on top of their observations. And, that's where we really get the chance to, as teachers, give the input that we see because we do develop that rapport with the kids. So we know if it's a bad day or if that's how they're normally acting. We also are the ones that, they might come out low on testing, but know that if they have certain supports within the classroom, then they may not need the special ed services, that they just might need some minor supports to help them be successful. So I agree with you, Lizzie and Jess, that we really do have a lot of power in what they do and don't receive. And with that power comes the responsibility of making sure we do what is appropriate and correct for the student.
So my question to the special ed ladies, so when you get to the standard or the objective, who is allowed to modify that? Is it the special ed teacher is allowed to modify that objective or that standard? Is that correct? They're allowed to change that, whereas the teacher is just there to help with the accommodations. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least in my school district, as a SPED teacher, we're able to determine if this kid needs a modified grade plan or any modified assessments, classwork, and it just kind of depends on each individual student, but they have to have it within their IEP that says that they can receive those modifications to where they're possibly working at like when their class is working on double-digit multiplication by double-digit, and this kid's working on double-digit by one-digit multiplication, so a different grade level. So it just kind of depends on how severe that kid's needs are and how you can match it within the classroom. But I know a lot of my gen ed teachers are able to kind of help me, though, really know where that kid is at, too, because it's hard with different grade levels to kind of, in all different subjects, to know what each kid needs.
Yeah, we're pretty similar in the fact that, we are just now getting to grade level where we're within the certain years I've taught multiple grades at one time. So, the content teacher really knows the content well. So, I can go in and have a conversation of these are the strategies that work. This is what the student is capable of doing. How can we work together so that they are still receiving an education? They're still, being challenged without being too challenged. And then they still have equal access to the classroom materials. So it depends. But, the other thing, too, that we've been stressing in my building is that the content teacher knows the content better than we do. So we really need to be working together. In order to support the kids, because I can't modify everything because I don't know everything. But I can say to a teacher, the kid does better if they just have 2 answers versus 4 options on a multiple choice test, or you need to break apart comprehend, like if you're asking a critical thinking question, how to reword it to make it sound, more at their level versus more complicated. So. Depends on the kid, though, like Jess was saying.
Yeah. I want to echo what both of the Hillary and Jessica are saying as special ed and as a gen ed teacher. It's equally as frustrating when your school, like the schools I worked at, the SPED team has been so kind of just like skeleton staff that there's not enough help to go around. Receive at the beginning of the year a stack of IEPs and 504s. You're not really given any code to how to read them or what to look for, or then how to incorporate them. So there's this break between my content knowledge and your all's knowledge of special ed world and IEP world and what all these things mean and how to incorporate that. And unfortunately, I think a break that happens in a lot of school is there's no time in your schedule in the day to actually meet or check in, or for you guys to come observe the kid in my class, or for the kid working with you, if there's pullouts going on. So I just wish that there was more time, money, and support allocated by schools and by the government who really could, facilitate things for these kids really, and I don't think they are right now because of the logistical problem, and that's what kind of fuels this, lack of movement and growth for special ed kids, or for misidentifying special ed kids, or confusing behavioral problems for emotional disturbance, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully in the future we'll have a lot more resources to, truly collaborate, because I think that that's a word that's thrown around a lot in schools, but not actually.
Absolutely.